everybody, Garozzo here, and welcome to Menopause Mindset Monday on the Winter Solstice. It's the 21st of December 2020, and a very warm welcome to you. So I didn't want to do a live today that was particularly heavy. I've got some ideas of some lives that I was going to do, but I was thinking to myself, I think these are a bit heavy. And I wanted to really acknowledge the day. I wanted to acknowledge where we might be at. And I wanted to acknowledge the season as well. So that's why I thought, you know what? Let's do a winter solstice offering as well. And we can make it very relevant to what many of us might be going through. So, hey, Julie, lovely to see you. Hope you're well. Right, so for many of us, the wind has been taken out of our sails. I don't know about you, I don't know how you're feeling, but I'm no longer able to spend Christmas with my parents and they're getting on a bit. So it's a bit worrying, and it's my mum's birthday, Christmas Day as well. So it's a real shame. And I know that for many people, there might be a lot of loneliness, there might be a lot of uncertainty around this time. Not to mention, anxiety as well, especially with this new strain of COVID and the new tiering system, which is happening at the moment. So I just wanted to really acknowledge that. So I wanted to bring you this wonderful topic today called How to Make the Most of Your Winter Solstice, because I hope that it might be able to help you reframe winter and darkness a little bit. And in an ode to the winter solstice, I've turned off my main light and I am, got my kind of moody vibe going on here. I'm wearing black and I've got my little fairy lights going on there. So what is the solstice? So the solstice is, I've done a bit of Googling because this is not my speciality, but I did a bit of Googling, and the solstice is, we think of it as the longest night or the shortest day, but the solstice is the peak of winter. I like to think it's the apex of winter. We're climbing up one side towards the peak of winter, and now we reach the peak and then we go down the other side towards spring. But it's when the Earth's poles have hit their maximum tilt away from the sun, and it happens at a specific time of day. So it happened today at 10:02 a.m. this morning, GMT. It's the shortest day and it's the longest night. So what you find is that typically most people prefer the light, they prefer the summer, and they dislike the dark. Now, I am actually the opposite. I'm going to let you into a secret. Being somebody who has really struggled with their sleep, when I struggle with my sleep, I mainly struggle in the summer than in the winter. I love the darkness. I think I must have been in a past life some kind of Viking or Nordic spirited person. Even though I'm half Italian, most people think, you should probably like the sun and the summer, but I'm not really great in the heat particularly. I much prefer the cold and I really like the dark. I'm not saying I prefer the dark, but I really do love the dark. I find it very warm. I find it very comforting. Julie, you've said you love the dark as well. Is that why you do loads of nights? Lovely. Yeah, definitely struggle more in the summer. Yes, I should probably do another live in the summer about training yourself for the heat. In fact, Wim Hof, the amazing Wim Hof, he does extreme challenges in the heat, and it's probably something that I could do with training myself in. Okay, so there is a magic in darkness, which I think if we seek to understand, we can really ignite our passion for it. So what does the winter solstice represent? So for me, it represents comfort, it represents surrender, it represents rest, it represents replenishment, and it also represents dreaming. I have crazy dreams in the winter where my subconscious mind is just really active and processing. Yeah, hot flushes in the summer. Yeah, I have hot flushes in the winter as well. But yes. Um, so it's a time the winter, the darkness. It's a time for us to really acknowledge that perhaps we need to do a bit less, slow down, maybe tell stories to each other. It's that whole kind of Scandinavian vibe of hygge, I think they call it. Forgive me if I've got that wrong, but it's kind of that coziness, isn't it? And also, I think that the winter solstice presents an opportunity to create more rituals in our life. And I don't know about you, but I love rituals. I don't necessarily acknowledge that I am doing a ritual, but I'll love to have a bath with some candles, or I'll love to, create like a cooking ritual, or just ritualize anything that needs doing, even if it's housework. You can ritualize anything. It's just really about setting an intention that, okay, now I'm going to do this and I'm going to make it good. I'm going to focus on the good. I'm going to focus on why this is particularly poignant or something like that. Julie, you've said, I feel I can hide away more in the winter without needing an excuse. Yes, I hear you. And funnily enough, yeah, in the summer, sometimes I can feel that I get more FOMO in the summer because I feel that everyone's out, everyone's on the beach. And if I'm not out on the beach, I'm missing out on something as well. But I've actually addressed that, well, with lockdown this year. Nobody could really go out. But a couple of years ago, I decided that it didn't matter. I could be indoors, I could be watching movies, I could be snuggling down, and it didn't matter if it was summer. If that's what I wanted to do, that's absolutely fine. So, the solstice, as with other pagan celebrations, is an invitation to look to nature as an example of how we could be living our own lives. So, nature is cyclical or cyclical, not linear. It's not a straight line. And often what happens is we try to shoehorn our own energy into a linear kind of social construct rather than the natural rhythms of life, which are definitely cyclical. So I often like to remember that we are a part of nature. We are carbon based life forms. And yes, that is a band as well. Check them out. I absolutely love their music. It's really droney and atmospheric. It's just gorgeous. So we are carbon based life forms, just like all of life, just like trees, like plants, like the sea. And if we get out of sync with nature, we really feel it. We get depressed. We might feel anxious. We just feel it. We feel that there's something wrong, that it's not quite right. So, winter solstice is an invitation for us to slow down and recognize that we are part of something bigger. We are part of the cosmos. When you look at nature, when you look at a field, fields often become barren in the winter. There's a sense of barrenness, isn't there? When you think of a winter landscape, there's no leaves on the trees. Everything is just been stripped back, stripped away. It's just kind of a death. And I think that's why many of us don't like winter, because we associate it with the fear of dying. But it doesn't have to be like that, because we can move into that death. We can allow ourselves to die in a way. We can mourn, we can grieve, and I think perhaps that's why winter is typically more difficult emotionally as well, because it feels like there is a death going on. Haha, you're too cool. Is that the carbon-based life forms reference? I know. I've got a very cool side. Also a very not cool side as well. So yes, there is a death, and there is a dying, there is a decaying, and often that's why we resist it, because we don't want to go to those darker emotions either. But it's important that we do, because if we don't, we stuff them down, we pack them away, they stay there, they fester, and then often we can become much more easily triggered when we do bump up against triggers or we experience triggers. So let me know if you're watching the replay, let me know how the winter feels to you. If you like it, if you don't like it, why you don't like it, why you like it. I'm really interested to find out from you. So I thought we would ponder this question today. How can we celebrate darkness a bit more and the solstice? So I've got 3 things for you. So number 1, we can plan for it. We can know it's coming, and instead of dreading it, let's embrace it, let's plan for it, let's understand what's coming, let's make allowances for it. So some of the work starts before the solstice. We must let it in, we must let ourselves go there, we must move towards it, embrace it, and try not to fear it or dread it, and simply just adjust to it. Many of us who are go-getters, like type A personalities, we like the summer because it gives us energy, and we don't like the winter because we feel we don't have the energy to put into the work that we so love to do. But the winter is an opportunity for you to be a type B personality, to take rest, to take stock, to let your nervous system relax a little bit, and to, put those boundaries in place. Maybe you don't want to have a crazy Christmas. Maybe you don't want to be driving all around the country to visit relatives. We can't do that now anyway. And I wonder, are you secretly finding it a relief that you don't have to travel around the country? Let me know what your thoughts are. It's okay if you do. I feel like that. There's part of me that is relieved about not having to travel on Christmas Day. And, as much as I love my parents, obviously we have challenges. But yeah, there's part of me that's really looking forward to just snuggling down and having a really, really simple Christmas Day. So, number 2. Here's a little ritual for you that you can do, and I'm definitely going to be doing this after this live. So what you can do, I think this would probably take about 15 to 20 minutes. You could make it as long as you wanted to, actually. So let's just call this the Winter Solstice Ritual of Darkness. There you go. So if you're a fan of crystals, you can sit yourself in a crystal grid. There are many different grid formations, and you can look them up on the internet. Or you could just pick your favorite crystals and pop them around you in a circle or in some kind of formation. So I had a little Google earlier, and stones that are really good for the winter solstice are bloodstone, good for grounding and courage, ruby, garnet, black onyx, azurite, sugarlight, snowflake obsidian, and snow quartz. I don't think I've got any of those, but I do have some crystals that I could probably use myself. So then you could pop some music on. So before I mentioned carbon-based life forms, really, really love that music. I also love Viking music. I think Viking music is really dark and representative of darkness in the Northern Hemisphere and the polarities. But something that is representative of that darkness for you. It could be some kind of classical music. It could be some pagan folk music. Anything that you like that is representative of kind of darkness. Maybe it's a bit forlorn. Maybe it's a bit sad. Actually, there's something as well called Medieval Babes. I don't know if you've heard of the Medieval Babes. I went to see them live many, many years ago, but really folky. It's like a girl group, and they sing in that medieval style, all a cappella. So again, really good for this time of year, kind of a folky Christmas. Julie, you're taking notes as you love crystals, but there are so many. I know. I'd love to do a degree in crystallology or whatever you call it. I just find them absolutely fascinating, but there are just not enough hours in the day for me to do all of this. Laurie, you've said, oh, I have some bloodstone. Amazing. Well, you could definitely use some of that. So then you've got your crystal grid around you, you've got your music on, droning in the background, not too loud. Then you can light one single candle. So light the candle, and then you would gaze at that candle for a moment or a couple of minutes. And then when it feels right to you, you're going to blow that candle out and you're going to sit in darkness for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, an hour, whatever you choose. And when you're sitting in this darkness, I want you just to be the witness of your thoughts. Just let your thoughts come up. Try not to worry about your thoughts. Don't worry about the quality of your thoughts. You know, if your thoughts end up going a bit weird, that's okay. If they go a bit odd or unusual, that's okay too. I want you to know this. We all have weird thoughts. I have weird thoughts as well. I'm a therapist. You know, I'm supposed to be positive all the time. I am positive a lot of the time, but sometimes, you know, obviously I get depressed. I never sit in my depression for very long, but I do feel sadness and I do certainly feel dark emotions and I quite like them. That's the thing, because I know that they'll probably just pass. What we suppress gets repressed. So the more we suppress dark emotions, the more they get repressed, the more they linger. So this is why the solstice is a wonderful opportunity to embrace the darkness, embrace those dark, weird emotions. Let them come up. Cry if you need to. Scream if you need to. Grieve if you need to. Let it all come out. You know, it might look a bit weird. Make sure you've got blankets as well. Wrap yourself up in blankets. you might be rocking with grief or sadness that's been suppressed for the whole year or something. So just let it out. Do this ritual for yourself. Once you've let some emotions out, you might have a feeling of stillness. You might have a feeling of calmness. You might not have a big emotional outburst, and that's absolutely fine too. You might just have a few reflections, but just sit with whatever emerges. Let whatever emerges come up without suppressing, without judging, without being harsh, hurtful, or critical towards yourself. Just let it all come up and out. Breathe into it. So if you do have that moment where you've cried and you've kind of purged emotions and you have that wonderful kind of relief afterwards, just sit in that stillness and really enjoy that stillness. You could also do some breath work while you're here. You could just do some gentle, long, slow, deep breaths in and out. I recommend breathing in through the nose because the air gets filtered this way. So breathing in and just breathing out with the intention maybe of letting go, or the intention of whatever your intention is. You can set your intention for this if you want to, but whatever you do, don't force anything, just allowing. Julie, you've said, how can I do this without crystals? You can totally do it without crystals. You don't have to do it with crystals. In fact, something that you can do, which is amazing, is you can imagine that the crystals are there. So this is a bit woo, this is a bit quantum, but I've done this in quantum psionics before, where you, so I live in a flat here with quite a lot of geopathic stress. We've got 5G tower, we've got loads and loads of traffic, so that the energy is spinning quite a lot. So I have placed like all these kind of weird geometric shapes in my imagination. I did a ritual quite a while ago and placed, a big kind of selenite crystal, black tourmaline, shungite, all the kind of protective crystals and the cleansing crystals all around this flat. It's a weird kind of cosmic visualization that I've got going on in my mind. I can't really explain it to you, but it's just something that happened in a ritual to just protect myself from all this geopathic stress from where I live. So in answer to your question, Julie, you can imagine it. You can imagine putting crystals around you. But what I would do if you are imagining, don't go for little ones, go for big ones, so that you're really telling your imagination what is there. And the bigger you go, the more powerful they are going to be in your imagination as well. So it's really important to dial up the imagination if you're going to do that, because the mind doesn't really know the difference between what is real and what is imagined. So if you put something there etherically, it's not going to know the difference. So we are getting a bit woo, but I love a bit of woo. And if you can't get woo on the solstice, when can you get woo? So hope that makes sense. There you go. That sounds doable. Yeah, why not? And you can imagine the shape of your crystals as well. You can have great big huge crystal balls, or you can have like beautiful pyramids, or you can have towers. You decide. So you're in the darkness, you've done your dark bit. Then when you feel ready, you're going to relight the candle, and you're going to just sit for a bit, re-gaze into the candle, do some breath work, and then you're going to grab a journal. So make sure you've got a journal with you. Grab your journal, and you're going to write out whatever came up for you. So write the emotions that came out, the realizations. Try not to do this before. It's very tempting when you're sitting there and you're processing your thoughts in the dark. It's very, very tempting to have an impulse to write it down, especially if you've had an idea. But try not to do that. Just trust that if that idea is for you, that idea will come back. And it will come back even stronger as well when it's time to write it down, or whenever you need to action that idea. This is full trust in the subconscious mind. So yeah, doing some journaling on the way that you feel. You might want to do some gratitude for the year. You might want to make note of some things that you've been inspired by, or some of your wishes for the new year or the future for yourself. But I wouldn't get too, for me personally, I wouldn't get too focused on like things like New Year's resolutions and what you want to bring in particularly. I would just focus on the letting go and on the feeling stuff and on the total acceptance and surrender, because I tend to find that doing another ritual sort of New Year's Day or New Year's Eve can be really, really helpful for actually New Year's Day probably can be really helpful for bringing in. So I like to think of the winter solstice as definitely being something more of a surrender, acceptance, rest, replenish, cocoon, cuddle with yourself, that sort of stuff. Okay, number 3, woo is fabulous. Yeah, I love a bit of woo, really do. Okay, so number 3, the final way that I love to celebrate the darkness is to understand that in order to know the light, we have to know the dark. So in order to appreciate happiness, we have to know what sadness is. In order to appreciate abundance, we have to know what lack is. In order to appreciate health, we have to know what sickness is. So all of our struggles that we've experienced this year help us to know and define and to appreciate the good stuff when it comes. We can't have we can't have dark without light. We can't have light without dark. So we need both. It's the yin and the yang. It's the day and the night. We live in a dualistic world where we have opposites, and I think it's really important to embrace that and acknowledge that, even though there is definitely something to be said for unity and oneness and non-duality. We do actually live in a dualistic world, and I think in order to cope with some of the struggles and the difficulties that we have in this world, it's good to understand this idea that often we have to experience struggle. It does make us more resilient. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger if you let it, if you allow it, if you pivot your attitude, if you go with nature, work with nature, and embrace what is and fully accept. Julie, you've just said, I just need to get through each day, not thinking about the new year. Yeah, totally understand that. And that's kind of how I live my life, actually. I have certain plans for the future. I have kind of projects that I know are happening in the future. But really, it's just about being in the moment and getting through each moment. Yeah. I used to be such a planner, and I used to plan my life to within an inch of itself. With, like, meal planning and travel planning. And if this year's taught me anything, it's that you can trust the universe a bit more, actually. And it's very good for, it's an anti-anxiety pill, trusting the universe, surrendering, and understanding that sometimes when things look really bad, it's almost like, it can be like the universe just sort of shifting gears for you. Often things can look really bad, but actually under the surface, life, aka the universe, is making other plans for you, and you can't necessarily see what's going on. It's like the destruction. Often to build a tower, you have to destroy an old one. Julie, that's why I work so much, caring for others, surrounded by wonderful friends. Oh, yeah. Hey, Rachel. You're so welcome. Yeah, so darkness really gives us the opportunity to embrace the light when it comes round again. How would we know that feeling of sun on our skin is so gorgeous if we didn't know what it felt like to be shivering, cold, wet, damp, and windblown? We need the opposites. Yeah, and another reflection I had was, people that live near the equator actually long for seasons. I went to Marrakesh a little while back, and we spoke to some locals who were like, oh, it's just too hot. We would love the winter. We would love to see snow. They just kind of get sun and sand all year round. So, yeah, it's just sort of understanding and knowing and embracing change, that we need change. Change is good. Lots of us fear change. We think it's a bad thing, but imagine if things never changed. Imagine if it was summer all the time. Sometimes on those blistering, bleaching hot days, you just can't wait for winter. You're like, roll on, winter. Hi, Rachel. So, Laurie, you've said we all need to get out of that masculine energy of structure, plans, linear movement forward. It needs to be more feminine, circular, and undulating, much more gentle and fluid. Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. And this is that idea of working within our cycles as well, and working with our menstrual cycle. So there'll be certain times of the month where you have more energy, and certain times of the month where you don't have as much energy. And it's about knowing when that is. So cycle tracking, knowing when that is on your calendar and scheduling around that. If you know you're going to have your period, and you know that your periods usually floor you on day, like for me, is usually around day 2, I start getting a bit, whew, this is challenging, but not all the time, funnily enough. I can sometimes have my period and have loads of energy. So it's hard to say sometimes. It is hard to track, but I think going with the flow in the moment is quite, if we can. That's the beauty of being self-employed, I suppose. But when you have when you've got a structure, when you have to go to work, like Julie, who's a nurse, when you have to go to work, I would imagine that can be quite difficult if you're not really feeling up to it. And I would love to see more policies in the workplace to allow for this cyclical nature of energy, especially women's energy, but men's energy too as well. Rachel, you've said shining light on the dark. We hide in the dark. Full acceptance of the whole. That's a really good point. Yeah. We can tend to hide in the dark. I wonder if that's why sometimes we find the darkness a lot easier. I know Julie was saying that she finds the winter easier sometimes than the summer because it gives us permission to hide. We can hide as well with that permission slip. But in the summer, we don't have as much permission to hide. It's like we've got to get out there. There's a sense of restlessness that can come with the summer. Interesting insights. So, yes. Where are we? So I don't know if any of you watching suffer from seasonal affective disorder. I've only ever had it once, and it was pretty crippling. And I know that for me, cutting out sugar really helped, or minimizing sugar, I should say, really helped. I did get myself a sad lamp, which certainly helped, but I've only ever had it once. But it really was a thing. I know that sometimes St. John's wort can help for SAD, vitamin D. Obviously, you need to make sure that you are taking your vitamin D3 supplements in the winter, getting outside as much as you can in the winter, getting some daylight in your eyes. Now, I know some of you might not agree with this, but occasionally I will go on a sunbed in the winter. I do have olive skin, so that helps. I'm not suggesting for a moment if you're fair skinned you go on sunbeds, but for me they tend to help actually in the winter, just to sort of lift my mood sometimes. And exercise as well is absolutely, phenomenal for SAD, because you're giving yourself an injection of endorphins. And the other thing that just came to mind is chlorophyll, because when you ingest greens or plants, especially, like, you can buy chlorophyll in droplets, actually, you are taking in that sunlight, because that's the green is to do with the plant's ability to synthesize sunlight. It's in there. So it's basically sunlight in a bottle. So, yeah, walking in nature, absolutely. Oh, Laurie, you've said, what happens when you don't have a flow because of the coil? Well, you will have a natural flow of energy anyway. Even women who have gone through the menopause will still have a kind of 28-day cycle. So yeah, I would check in with yourself and see where, you could do some energy tracking yourself, Laurie. So you could map your energy, get a calendar, get a diary, and just track your energy over 3 months, and then look back and see how your energy's been and see if there's a pattern. 3 months, you might want to do it a bit longer, actually, 4, 5, 6 months if you can, to get a real good result. I wonder if there's an app. There's probably an app that you can get for energy tracking. Rachel, you've said walks in nature. Absolutely. I mean, if there's one thing that this winter lockdown has taught me, is how much I love walking in nature. And I bought myself I got a pair of walking boots for my birthday. And, Graham and I, when we go out for walks, we don't stop talking. Yet when we're indoors on the sofa, we've both got our phones in front of us, we can't think of anything to say. Like, what is that all about? But I do think there's something magical that happens when you walk in nature. Nature emits some kind of like compound, and we breathe it in, and it's like pure medicine. I did know the name of it, but I've forgotten the name of it. I think it begins with P. Laurie, you've got to go. That's fine. Dinner on the table. Enjoy your dinner, and I'll see you next week if you're available to join. And the other thing that helps SAD is seeing your friends and making sure that even if you don't feel like it, even if it's a massive stretch, to make sure that you do see people, because that's so important to have conversations, even if it's just a small conversation, even if you can only manage a little bit, because when we speak to people, we get that our nervous system relaxes and we feel much more connected. Graham doesn't stop talking, full stop. Is that right? Maybe he does when we're at home. But yeah, no, you're right, actually. When we're out on walks, he does natter. All right, so just before we finish, I wanted to let you know of something that I've got coming up. So this is something that I've got coming up. It's a masterclass called How to Make Sleep Your Superpower. It's happening on the 18th of January at 7 p.m. GMT. And it's a free masterclass where you can learn my 5-step signature system to transform disrupted sleep into knockout sleep night after night, enabling you to regain your sanity, your energy, and your productivity. Rachel, I'll come back to you in a moment. Welcome to my 5-step system to strengthen your nervous system, induce and re-induce good quality sleep so that you can let go of the worry about insomnia or sleep difficulties and that dreaded feeling about how you will cope tomorrow. So if you are, number one, waking up frequently and finding it hard to drop back off, or finding it hard to fall asleep in the first place, this might be for you. Number two, if you are getting envious of others who fall asleep effortlessly, this might be for you. Number three, if you start to ruminate over whether or not you are going to sleep as the evening or morning, Julie, if you do lots of nights, draws in, then this might be for you. Number four, if you're fed up with trying quick fixes like CBD oil or melatonin tablets, and you're looking for a longer term solution, this might be for you. So what you will learn, number one, how to uncover the root cause of what's keeping you up so that you can become aware of your insomnia triggers and choose to be in charge of them rather than the other way around. Number two, how to develop a system for deep, hard, knockout sleep night after night so that you can regain your zest for life, improve your relationships, your productivity, and your health, because we all know what happens if you don't sleep properly. Number three, how to leverage your sleep challenges for greater sleep success so that you can live confidently knowing that you can deal with whatever emerges. Oops. So it's happening Monday, the 18th of January at 7 p.m. It's going to be done via Zoom, and you can sign up via that link there, sallygarozzo.com/sleep masterclass. That's sallygarozzo.com/sleep masterclass. Oh, that's that link in bio. I think this is because this is for my Instagram account, these slides. I do have limited spots available, so make sure that you do sign up. And that's it. Learn my 5-step signature system to transform disrupted sleep into knockout night sleep, night after night, enabling you to regain your sanity, your energy, and your productivity. So there we go. That's what I've got coming up in January. Many people who are going through the menopause suffer with terrible night's sleeps. People who do shift work like Julie suffer with just not being able to get their rhythms back on track, not having that ability to or that knowing what to do. Really, without going into too much detail, but sleep is all about structure and rhythm and circadian rhythms. So that's why I thought it was very fitting to just pop that on the end of this talk about the rhythm of nature, the rhythm of the winter solstice, embracing the darkness. Let it in, let some of those challenging emotions in, up, and out, and then enjoy it. Squirrel away, do what you need to do. Don't overindulge in too much wine, cheese, and chocolate. Obviously, don't restrict yourself, but really listen to your body and listen to your mind. So, thank you so much for being here with me today and for sharing this part of your day with me. It means a lot. I hope you get to do the winter solstice ritual of darkness, whatever I called it. I can't remember now. Remember, I'm always here for you. If you want to talk, if you want to drop me a DM, ask me a question, of course, you're absolutely welcome to. So lots of love, and I will see you next Monday, because next Monday is the 28th of December. So I'm probably going to do a little live for you. Not sure what the subject is, but if you want me to cover a particular subject, then just let me know. Have a wonderful Christmas, and I'll see you next week. Bye.